So, big week in Provo. Big week in Provo. A 5-star quarterback who some say is the best in the country. I saw an analyst at 24/7 Sports who could commit to BYU on Tuesday. And there's actually quite a bit of reason to believe that like BYU may legitimately pull this off. And if you're a fan of another school in the Big 12, you should be paying a lot of attention to this. Pay attention to what is happening in Provo with the way that they are really changing the way that they recruit, based, you'd have to assume, in large part on amount of money available, but just a different strategy shift here for BYU. And this is very important timing-wise for a lot of reasons too. Okay, so this quarterback is Ryder Lions. Oregon is the primary competition right now. There was a USC visit scheduled at one point. Believe that did get canceled, even though his brother plays at USC. So that seems to be a good sign. Ryder Lions just took a visit to BYU this past weekend, and I did see on Twitter today, thank you for those who put this out there, he had a nice little TikTok in the locker room putting on a BYU uniform. Okay, so I'm not a kid anymore, in my mid-30s. I don't know what the kids would say about that, but that seems like a positive sign. If he's out there making TikToks and throwing the uniform up, it seems like a good sign. Other good signs here. Ryder Lions, it is a unique case. Class of 26 wouldn't come until 27 because he would be going on an LDS mission for a year starting in January. So that would seem to lend itself toward BYU, right? There's a pretty strong connection with the religious faith there and the school, more so than I think with others that have religious affiliations. It matters a lot. He has a ton of family, including a dad that played football at BYU. I mentioned he already canceled the USC visit where his brother plays. Was reading in the Deseret News a column from Dick Harmon there, who said that sources were claiming he's not just there to chase the biggest NIL offer, which I guess you could look at that and say could be good, could be bad, because the BYU haters out there would say, well, they're just splashing money around like crazy. Like, ask a Baylor fan about that, right, with the Rob Wright situation. But you are competing against Oregon, who's going to have a lot of Nike money. And a kid that's, I think the real point here would be just a kid that's thinking about something more than just money. I think that's almost always going to play into BYU's favor, especially when they're somebody who is a member of the LDS church. Okay, there's even 4-star tight end commit. Brock Harris has been really helping out here. I believe BYU fans could correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe he was the other guy in the TikTok. If I had that correct, maybe not. And that's another guy who had an Oregon offer who chose BYU. Here's a little bit more from the Deseret News on this. Without talking specific NIL money, up in the air for Lions, a consideration between BYU and Oregon is, quote, guaranteeing money, which means the financials will be there even if the star QB is injured and never plays a game. Injury liability is a factor in the upcoming decision. It will be interesting to see how BYU approaches this issue. Okay. But all this would seem to play into this thought idea that I've had for a while. Many others have as well, that like, hey, depending on how this house settlement thing goes and how fair market value is going to be actually adjudicated, BYU could be a real big player in the Big 12 here. AJ DeBonsta's already happened. You want to go back to like Igor Demin, basketball-wise, that was a big recruiting win. Like, BYU's been swimming in some really big-time waters when it comes to pulling in huge recruits. And this would be the latest. And, man, I don't know. AJ DeBonsta, you're getting the number one player in the country. That's big, obviously. And basketball, you have a better chance at winning a national championship than you do in football. But, man, to pull off 5-star quarterback in football away from Dan Lanning in Oregon, to me, that feels harder than landing an AJ DeBonsta, and is almost more significant in terms of trying to elevate your profile and prove like, hey, we are here to stay. Whatever this is going to look like in this new era of college football, we've got the resources and we've got coaches who are going to be aggressive and go pursue high-level talent like this, especially when we have a lot of built-in advantages. But DeBonsta, there were not the built-in advantages. They've proven they can do it really either way here. But Kalani Sitake's had to win with, talent that's not like this. And you go get a quarterback like that has real potential to lift that program quite a bit, which is already coming off an 11-win season. And it would also, I think the other thing that is significant to me about this is what it says about where it's at in the Brian Santiago era as the athletic director, because a lot of what I was hearing around the time he was hired is like, hey, this guy played a really big role in what was happening with basketball NIL and stepping that up and keeping Kevin Young around, basically just getting the resources in place to make the basketball program what it is and give it the momentum that it has had. And so now if he's showing he can do this with football to facilitate the to procure a 5-star quarterback like this all of a sudden, and one that could be some 24/7 sports analysts say is the best in the country. I mean, that's huge and should instill some confidence in where this athletic department is going to go with Santiago replacing an absolute legend in Tom Holmoe. So I don't know. To me, this was another one of those signs, just kind of like a little blinking light, like, hey, man, like BYU's on the radar of being big time and maybe being the school or one of a school or a couple schools to really run this thing in the next 5 to 6 years. To me, like the next era of college athletics is like the next 6 years until we hit whatever the next wave is going to be of realignment when those TV deals are ending and we get there. You're talking about like the next, who knows when that will actually start? I guess I'll say 4 to 6 years. BYU is definitely on the scene and has the opportunity to be the top performer out of the league because of that. And we're seeing more and more evidence of it. This being one of those. For sure. I know I've seen like some talk in all of this, like, is it going to be a Bryce Underwood type of deal? Which, it seemed like that got way, way up there. He's the quarterback going to Michigan, who had been committed to LSU, but Michigan came in. Dave Portnoy from Barstool was like involved in the offer that they gave him. I don't know if it's getting quite to that level here. The part, that nugget from the Deseret News about like just guaranteed money as opposed to, maybe that's a new twist and turn that this takes. And you got to do something like that to get it locked down. But, without coming across like desperate or anything, I mean, this is one that like it's worth going all out to try and get for all the reasons that I laid out there. What you're trying to do with your football program, man, you want to continue what happened last year, go get a 5-star quarterback and then see the momentum that builds off of that too, right? I've sort of seen it at K-State, like the Avery Johnson effect. Dylan Edwards winds up coming back. You land Lincoln Cure, a 5-star tight end then in the next recruiting class. Like it can have a kind of gravitational effect for your program. So something to watch out for. Now, it could be all for naught. Maybe he'll choose Oregon on Tuesday, but I'm telling you, pay attention to this, people. Pay attention to what happens on Tuesday. Okay, Bennett. What's up, Bennett? Thank you for being here. Appreciate your contribution. Bennett says, Houston has a 5-star number 3 overall commit, and you have never devoted this much time for Keyshawn. I have not, and there are a couple of, well, first of all, one thing I want to say about that is that he is coached by Michael Bishop, who is my favorite athlete of all time, and I really appreciate that. If you wanted to really dig at me, you could hypothesize I haven't talked about it because I'm upset that Michael Bishop, the greatest, for my money, the greatest player in K-State football history, did not push him to K-State. Like, come on, man. But look, Willie Fritz was Michael Bishop's JUCO coach. So I can't be that mad. Willie Fritz is also a great dude. Here's the thing, Keyshawn, like BYU is in much more position right now to just where the football program is at. To have a player like this, I think, elevate them to being a legitimate Big 12 contender. Like, nothing against Houston. I think Willie Fritz is a great coach. I think he will continue working the Houston program toward respectability and then potentially beyond. But I think you got a couple of steps to get to where BYU's at. I also don't think Houston has the general resources to consistently be at the top of the league. That's been a problem, bit of a struggle. I think it's going to, like, we'll see how Houston handles the rev share era. I have some real question marks about how that goes. Some of this is, I mean, your defensive coordinator, who was a stud, got money whipped away by Texas Tech just this offseason. So there's not as much of like a gravitational pull around the Houston program as there is with BYU. I think he's a great player. The other thing, and this is just, if we're going to be totally honest about this, Josh Pate, think it was the last show I was mentioning the Iowa State fan that was Jack Trice Mafia, maybe, who called him out on Twitter and was going back and forth about not talking about the Big 12 enough. And I said, look, I'll cut him a little bit of slack because we do, in content creators, like making content, you make content that people want to see. And there is a larger contingent of BYU fans out there that are extremely passionate that watch the content. And so you lean into that a little bit, but especially at a time when BYU really is in the midst of this, what feels like a transformational period within their athletics department and an incredible run of success that they have had. So look, I would say this about Houston, like your picture is Kelvin Sampson. I mean, Houston basketball, I talked a lot of Houston basketball and the overall importance of their run to the Big 12 when that was going on, and we were not really talking about much else. So that carried a lot of airtime when appropriate. So hey, if Houston wins double-digit games with said 5-star quarterback, then we'll talk a lot about it. But it's got to be earned on the field first. That would be my answer. But I appreciate it. And hey, if you keep bugging me to talk about it more, if you get more Houston fans to watch, if you get that content to rate well, I'll say rate well, but that's a really weird way to say it, then you'll get more coverage of it. But Houston just needs to become more of a factor. I love Willie Fritz. I'm going to aim to interview him again at Big 12 Media Days coming up very soon. So hope to see that. And I can ask him, I guess, can I? I don't know. Does the NCAA still have rules at this point anymore? I was going to say, I mean, the rule's always been you can't talk about a recruit until you actually have him signed. But like, does the NCAA enforce any of that anymore? Do we care anymore? I guess they do, because Dion got in trouble for it last year with Julian Lewis on his radio show. So, okay, I can't ask him specifically about that. I can ask him about Michael Bishop, though. Anyway, Bennett, thank you for being here. I appreciate your contribution to the channel, my friend. Rise and Shout. Great work, John. Thanks for everything. Appreciate you, Rise and Shout. Thank you for being here.